So we've been receiving loads of reports around the rock on the east side and within the bay area of Mauve Stingers. The bloom has been happening because of the increased temperatures in the area, and we've actually, on our Nemo app, we've been tracking blooms from Malta that have been making their way down, and it looks like those blooms have made their way down here finally.
So you mentioned the warm temperatures. Obviously, there was a heat wave over the weekend.
Yeah.
But more broadly, how is this issue linked to climate change and the environmental changes that we are seeing in Gibraltar and across the globe, really?
Okay, so with respect to jellyfish, the warmer waters actually promotes the reproductive cycles of these jellyfish. So you're going to get more jellyfish in warmer waters. And then linking the climate change element to it, climate change is actually warming our oceans, and so helping to promote the amount of jellyfish that we have there.
More practically, if someone does get stung by a jellyfish, what should they do?
So it's very difficult to give advice on jellyfish stings, because depending on which jellyfish you have been stung by, what treatment you need to give. So the best advice that we can give is to go seek medical attention for it.
Now, you've said that you've spotted them around the coastline, but how do these numbers compare to previous years? Is it quite common at this time of year, or are you seeing more than you recall from previous years?
So within the last 5 years, we've only had one major bloom, this being the second major bloom that we've had in Gibraltar. And actually this bloom, it was much, much weaker than the previous bloom that we had. If you remember, it was a couple of inches thick, and it was all around the coastline and impossible to swim. This, you could see the water, and it was thick, but it wasn't quite as bad as the first time. The frequency of these blooms are going to continue happening as the water warms, and it's something that we're going to have to manage going forward.
Do all the beaches in Gibraltar now have nets to try and keep jellyfish out, and how useful are those?
My understanding is that the nets have been removed from some of the beaches. It might be temporarily, that's a question probably for government, but in terms of the efficiency of the nets, one of the problems that the nets have is that if you've ever made mashed potato at home, when you boil the potatoes and you kind of push them through the sieve, that effect is what happens with jellyfish and the nets, especially when there's a lot of jellyfish mass in the water. And those stinging cells then get pushed into the area that you deem as safe and can still sting you. And so what ends up happening is, instead of leaving a tentacle mark on your skin, you'd end up getting a much wider area being stung by the individual cells that are floating around in the water. So not as efficient as one might think.